It is pretty safe to mention that 2020 was a difficult year for many to cope with. There was small talk of a new virus running rampant at the beginning of January, with a worldwide lockdown taking swift effect at the end of March. The ever-growing virus put a stop to many normal day-to-day activities, but there was a small glimmer of hope in the form of interacting with cute, cuddly animals. The long-awaited iteration of Animal Crossing New Horizons provided a safe harbor to invest time in wholesome villagers who want the best for you. This formula started in 2001's Dobutsunomori, or Animal Forest, on the Nintendo 64, and it was simple to see why this formula stuck. Your curated town provided a wonderful environment to interact with your neighbors and get to know them as individuals. Activities like fishing or digging added deeper layers of interactivity to shape and mold your town to your heart's content. This foundation has been Animal Crossing's cornerstone, being the perfect formula for its popularity during the pandemic to rely on a wholesome game through difficult times. The little game that could has swept the pandemic, but I wanted to look at the Nintendo 64 version to see where the humble beginnings of Animal Crossing lie dormant. So to look at that, I want to do a port versus port, a video series highlighting the differences and the similarities of the vanilla and port versions of a singular title. Get ready to tell me your favorite villager and activity in Animal Crossing as we dive on the Nintendo 64 version. Compare that to the Gamecube. If I ask you to name simulation games that emulated day-to-day life, not many of you would think of titles in the 90s. Day-to-day sims were a novelty at the time, with a small handful of titles meeting those criteria. Sure, titles like SimCity or SimFarm existed before Animal Crossing, but Will Wright's The Sims provided a basis for what to expect from day-to-day simulation. At the time, Nintendo was looking to create and develop titles taking advantage of the Nintendo 64 DD hardware, a physical expansion attached to the bottom of the 64 using zip drive technology to take advantage of both read and write capabilities. Dobutsunomori was able to take full advantage of this system by using the internal clock battery of the 64 DD to maintain a real-time day and night cycle. The concept of anthropomorphic animals with larger-than-life personalities was to assist the main player traversing through the game. The game's design became too vast for the system to handle, so many ideas were stripped down and cancelled for the 64 DD. This animal game was redesigned as a non-goal-oriented game where the player was thrown into an unknown, dilapidated town. In 2001, Nintendo unveiled the Japanese exclusive Dobutsunomori for the Nintendo 64. One of the very last titles on the platform, Dobutsunomori threw you as an unknown playable character in a randomly generated town. As newly appointed mayor of your town, you can build it by performing methodical but satisfying objectives such as removing weeds for a more beautiful town or paying off your house debt to the town's mogul Tom Nook. But the game never forces you to meet these objectives either. You can play the game at your own leisure and have other activities such as fishing or filling up your collection full of sea critters, or chop down trees to plant new ones in their place to beautify the town. This experience was unlike anything at the time. You were given no objectives with time frames or sensitive goals to meet. Freedom was the helm of any objective, allowing you, the player, to shape and play your own experience. If you wanted to build a town to your desire, you can pick up weeds to clean up the land. If you wanted to get to know the town's fattest tanuki, you can perform tasks for him and have a bigger house to decorate. And if you wanted to get to know the local villagers and their personalities, you can do so. Compared to future iterations of Animal Crossing, Dobutsunomori's villagers provided a wide array of personalities and dialogue. You could empathize with, say, Rover, for his excitement to see you entering this new town, or get pissed when a new villager sees you dug up a game cartridge and proceeds to trade it for crap.
I'm gonna take you. Wait, are you fucking kidding me? I actually wanted that.
Look, after 3 years, I'm still not over what she did. I hate it so much. Like many N64 games at the time, a conventional CR2032 battery used in the cartridge not for holding saved data, but to keep an accurate time for the game's clock. For example, my used copy of Dobutsu no Mori had a drained battery, so the clock was inaccurate, but the previous owner's saved files were well intact. Keep that in mind if you ever buy a used cartridge, as the battery is to keep an accurate day and night cycle, not the game's saved data. Having a clock battery also introduced the franchise's real-world integration of seasons. The game cycled through different seasons: spring, summer, fall, and winter, taking place during their real-time events. This governed what activities and collectibles you were able to obtain. If you wanted to collect every single aquatic creature in Animal Forest, you can only obtain the jellyfish in August, while the bitterling only came out from December to January. Aside from a small handful of Nintendo 64 games that ran at a buttery smooth frame rate, Animal Forest is not one of them. The game is capped at 30 FPS, but actions like fishing, digging, catching bugs, or even moving from grid to grid on the map can put a small hamper on the frame rate and can have frame rate dips. You can see how a simple traversal of the grid-based system causes small pauses during transitions and then spikes back up to 30. When many NPCs or villagers are on screen, expect frame rates to drop in the 15s and hover at that position until you move on the grid. Dobutsu no Mori, like many Nintendo 64 games, renders at 320 by 240p. Most 64 titles tend to look worse due to poor draw distance or lower quality textures, but Dobutsu no Mori maintains a lovely balance of higher quality textures, great 3D models, and blending them with 2D textures. This combination makes the title one of the Nintendo 64's best in visual quality. I also read on several wikis that Dobutsu no Mori takes advantage of the expansion pack to achieve 640 by 480i, but had difficulty replicating this phenomenon. There are no settings at the beginning of the game to enable the expansion pack, and booting up the game either via jumper or expansion pack replicates both the frame rate and the resolution, so at least from my test, I cannot confirm the expansion pack is of any use. The Japanese language barrier can be a big hurdle for some players to get through. Dobutsu no Mori's target audience was young kids, so expect basic levels of hiragana, katakana, and light kanji. If you are playing the game, I would highly recommend coming with the knowledge of elementary Japanese and a Japanese jisho to help navigate through interacting with villagers and some activities. It is a great entry-level game for many Japanese students or enthusiasts of the language to use as a means of practicing or learning to read and write. Dobutsu no Mori was an incredible start to one of Nintendo's flagship titles, but it was only the beginning for the franchise. Nothing short but a legendary swan song to finish off an amazing console. But the next version of Animal Forest brought fixes and implementations that might prove a definitive means for many to enjoy. Nintendo's dilemma for Dobutsu no Mori franchise deepened in confusion. On one hand, the beautiful and charming aesthetic of the new title would be tethered to using a costly cartridge battery to monitor the game's time. But on the other, how would Nintendo advance this franchise and popularize it to the rest of the world? Nintendo's solution came in the form of a purple lunchbox that would become their next flagship console. With a personal 2032 clock battery inside the controller port of the Gamecube, this solved the costly cartridge problem, opening up brand new possibilities for this franchise. The entire world was able to experience Animal Crossing for the first time.
Here's the true story.
Four friends pick to live in a video game
And find out what happens when they stop being themselves.
and start being someone else.
Animal Crossing for Nintendo GameCube.
Yeah, do you remember that commercial? Those crappy but amazing costumes and 2001 antics of throwing props at each other solidified the concept of Animal Crossing.
Welcome to Animal Crossing, the live game that's happening every minute of every day, whether you're playing or not.
Nice outfit. Where'd you get it? A garbage dump?
Yeah.
It was that slogan that helped promote the GameCube title. Whether it was summer or fall, the game was marketed as always existing, always playing, always listening. The game was its living, breathing world, with characters enacting on their schedule. And thanks to this simple but cuddly game, the first title sold just shy of 2.27 million units, being a new but successful Nintendo flagship. Animal Crossing on the Nintendo GameCube was an enhanced port of the original title, one built on the ground up for the Nintendo 64 to be carried over to the next generation. This new port also brings some new visual enhancements that might incline you to choose this over the N64. For starters, the original resolution of the cube was 480i using composite cables. This base resolution is a significant improvement over the 240p on the Nintendo 64. Using component cables easily bumps that to 480p, which sharpens the image a bit for a better presentation. When you put both of these titles side by side, you can tell Nintendo put a considerable amount of detail on the character models and details in the world, pushing the 64 to its absolute limits. Visual fidelity also received a nice improvement, running at a buttery smooth 60 FPS, with no hitches, stutters, or anything to detach from the gameplay. Moving from grid to grid on the map, or speaking to multiple NPCs, alleviates any stutter from the 64 counterpart, making this a visual definitive experience. I mentioned the grid-based system several times in this video, but this is the first time in the franchise to feature this. The map is separated into a grid, dividing villagers and buildings into their places. The system was easy to recognize and use and evolved into the dubbed rolling pin world that later Animal Crossing titles would feature. But Japan was in no way, shape, or form done with Animal Crossing, as Dobutsumori E Plus released about a year later. E Plus's main appeal was the use of Nintendo's newest Game Boy Advance peripheral, the e-reader, using specific cards and accessing unique gaming functionality. In principle, the e-reader would be attached to the Game Boy and an advanced cable connected to your console to be able to access these features. This concept of the e-reader card would be transferred later to Animal Crossing New Horizons in the form of amiibo cards, letting you swipe your card onto your Switch to bring in new in-game characters. A total of 84 characters were able to be moved into your village and interact with. This version would be considered more of a novelty than anything practical, since prices for the e-reader cards can be quite expensive, making New Horizons a more viable option in 2023. The content of all 4 iterations of Animal Crossing is difficult to cover since there are so many details and cosmetic improvements in each version. Each subsequent version includes new household items, villagers, and clothing to obtain, all of which are difficult to cover in one video. If you want to see the minimal differences in each version, I highly recommend taking a look at the Animal Crossing fandom linked below so you can find out which port of Animal Crossing suits your needs. But with these ports, how do these compare to each other? In true port versus port fashion, let us take a look at each version side by side so you can be the judge of your ideal version. And that is Animal Crossing across the Nintendo 64 and a couple of other versions on the GameCube. Going back and looking at Animal Crossing's origins, how it started from a standalone game that was with an unknown villager, and now here you are interacting with these cute animals and living a lifestyle with them. It's something that's quite interesting to see, but now to see it so well developed, you know, these days, it's kind of humbling to go back and see where Animal Crossing started and how much we could appreciate the series further. But even if you're going back to the classic Animal Crossing, it is still such an addictive experience. The personality types, I think, are what really hold me together when I'm looking at Animal Crossing on the Nintendo 64 and the GameCube, and I think it'll hold you as well. But what do you guys think? What is your preferred version of Animal Crossing? Do you like the 240p resolution on the Nintendo 64, seeing those cute little blocky villagers, or do you think the smoother look on the GameCube is what suits your needs? Let me know down in the comments below so we can have a great discussion. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. I really do appreciate it. I know this one's taking quite a bit of time. Life's been really busy, kind of back-to-back stuff, but you know, it's nice to release this. I've been wanting to do this one for a while. But if you want to support the channel, I have all my links down below, including my Patreon and my YouTube, so you can support it. But also, I want to thank these people right here for supporting the channel. It's thanks to you guys that I'm able to keep going and doing this. But also, if you want to see other comparisons I've done, right here, you can see all of them. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. And I'll see you very soon.